super honored. It's a really great pleasure to have you today on the show. Because again, I had a little bit of discussion about the entire situation, what's going on here now on a global scale. Pretty sad, but of course, there is a lot of the future. I think is going to be really bright. And today's guest is gonna, shine more of the positive light on us and explain that you can be part of this industry. So I had, many of these people to talk about that. But today's guest is she's awesome. She's awesome. So maybe I was supposed to ask how to pronounce her name in the first place, but hey, look, it's not perfect. I'm not perfect. Okay, so maybe you can give your personal background to just explain how did you start it, Indus Space .ca, by the way, for people, you can go and check it out, and why the space industry.
Okay, so I'll address the second question first and then the first question, if that's okay. Sure. So I have always been interested in astronomy, looking up at the sky, whether it was daytime or night, as a kid. And really, my parents were very supportive early on and just kind of saying, okay, you want to take the camera of the day back in the 80s to kind of look up at the sky. Sure, you can go and explore that. And so that was early interests that I just pursued. I loved tectonics as a topic as a kid, but really it was after around the time I was maybe just shy of high school, got to see my first comet when we were still living in the Middle East. Very memorable occasion, because how often does a comet come in the night sky? But then soon after migrated into Canada, and then through the high school journey, we have a program out here where students have to do about 55 hours of volunteering. And back then, again, almost turn of this century, it wasn't very easy to know what was around for astronomy related things. As much as I knew I wanted to do that, my teacher wasn't quite aware where to point me to. But my mom and I searched around on the telephone directory, and we came across the Royal Astronomical Society of Canada, approached the president and asked, can we help? Can I get like 55 hours? He was very welcoming. And while I officially helped with memberships, that was really my first real opportunity to dip into this a bit more. I got to see my first lunar eclipse, and then a later co-op experience actually helped me shadow a professor in astronomy. I got to use that telescope on site, got to see sunspots, all of that. And that essentially motivated me to pursue like astronomy, astrophysics, really in first year, but very soon on, I also realized not all of those topics were very intriguing. So I did my undergrad at the University of Toronto, and back then there was a program sort of second to third year that was called Planetary Science. It involved shifting campuses, but really it was like you could do a mix of any of the sort of what is now known as space science topics, right? So in that experience, I got to do geology or take courses in geology. And I think that was where the light bulb went. And I was like, aha, I can combine my love for astronomy, my love for plate tectonics. And actually there's a career out there for, those who continue on. And so undergrad into master's and then PhD, I really dove into the topics of looking at planetary science. So looking at the geology of different surfaces, got to work on the moon, Venus, a little bit of Mars, but more Earth, and all of that. Again, each one cemented that sort of interest a bit more. And now I'm officially, I guess, a space scientist. So that was the journey. But to your first question of how I started into space, one of the things was post-academic sort of graduate journey. I recognized that there was a bit of a gap, at least where I was based, like my family is based, in the general public knowing about what's happening in the space sector. Like, the news items were not very frequent, unlike what it is now. Even 3 or 4 years ago, there was not as much space content in the news. However, being part of the community, I knew that there was a lot of things happening. And so when I would ask family friends with their kids, like, did you know this? Or this is happening at the local science center or something. often the answer was no. And so that, I think, was the early roots of why I started Indus Space. It's basically to get that knowledge and awareness about space science exploration, the topics around it, and the people in it, to really promote that for families, for kids who are interested in STEM, and you know, kind of posing the question of consider space science as a career if that's something that you're interested in. So that's the long and short of how I started in this space.
There you go. So yeah, so we are on the same page for sure when it comes to, you know, spreading the message across to different people in different countries and letting them know that, look, space is open, not just for business. As we see all these brand new startups, you know, people put the Elon Musk on a pedestal, and there's SpaceX, there's, you know, Blue Origin, there's Rocket Lab, or whatever company you want to name it, public or private. And again, the space agencies, the things that they're working on, it's super exciting. But again, as I kind of mentioned before we started recording, we need so many more people. We're talking probably millions or billions of people working collaboratively with and tackling all these big problems. And you don't have to work, you know, you can be a contractor working with a private or, you know, space agency. So, you know, that's what it's all about. Because I think any of us, again, because every time we look at a movie, you know, like it's going to be some sort of a space colony, if it's here on the planet or a different planet, and it's a space colony. And I'm pretty sure, like, if you take one person at a time, they will be involved into this entire, you know, engine that's running in some way, shape, or form. You know, if they're going to be doing an art or finance, whatever they may be, they will be part of that. So, and we now need to paint the picture for the people, because there is still a ridiculous number. I think it's a 90+% people that have never seen a Milky Way. So when we have that problem with light pollution and all these different problems, how people can know that there is actually space happening right now? Because how many people are driving right now in the street and they're not thinking about space? Maybe thought about that, you know, 20 years ago. So it's a problem that we have to tackle. So, but it's great. And I think one thing that's good for the people, I had one of the people recently on the show. His name is Lucas. He's the European Rover Challenge co-founder. He's the founder of European Rover Challenge. You know, and he's doing right now research based on different gender, you know, country, age group, how people consume the information these days. So let's say if there's a successful SpaceX launch, how, you know, you or I are going to perceive that message. Because some people might say, oh, you know, it's happening, like I'm not going to pay attention anymore. But some people might get excited, some people might get discouraged. So I think it's going to be a very interesting paper, because he's doing a PhD work on that right now. So I said, I'm going to be waiting that. So once is that going to be out, it's going to be in the show notes. I'm going to send it to you for sure, because I think it could be a great information, you know, to read through. But
sure.
So another thing, so can you tell us, I mean, how people can get involved? Because again, I'm right now on the website, and you guys and girls are going to find the website in the show notes. What about the events? Because I see a lot of events. So can you name how people can be part of these events, virtually or physically? How people can get involved and, you know, be part of this?
So currently in pandemic times, everything is virtual. So if any events are happening, we do list them on the website, but then we also have our social media. So at Indus Space CA is where you can follow along on what it is that we're involved with. We tend to do programs and that are at all scales. So sometimes it's more local, but sometimes it's, you know, regional. And now, of course, there are lots of national events that are about STEM engagement. And so we're often participating in that. So I would say social media for any of your listeners is the best way to follow along. But in terms of our programs, we tend to focus for the under 18 age group. So really for anyone from kindergarten all the way to grade 12, at least in that sort of age groups. And the program styles can also vary between day camps and workshops, or the one-day symposium that got put on hold last year because of pandemic, but this year we'll move forward with the virtual version. And really a focus in all of our programming is not just to talk about a particular space topic, but often involve professionals that are, you know, part of the space sector. One of the things that we observed early on is that, again, the general public is not aware not only of what space exploration is involved, who does it, but really even as a country, for us in Canada, the large public are not necessarily aware that there's a whole group of companies in our backyard technically working on these things. So often in our programs, we invite people who are space engineers and space scientists and everyone involved, and maybe someone with nutrition, even that expertise, just for youth to kind of understand and hear from someone who is directly involved in that sort of a topic. So our programs are varied.
Gotcha. Okay, so and those programs again with the website. So again, I will try and link as many of the possible links, so you guys with the one click you can go to these direct places and pages. But yeah, it's awesome. Again, I love the social media presence. Regina is definitely doing a great job with that. So this is awesome. Looks fantastic.
Pass it along to her.
Here you go. I will for sure. Okay, so what type of questions do you get from all these younger kids who's coming in? Like, what type of questions this generation is asking about the space? Can you name a few?
I think the one that sticks out all the time is about black holes. Is our sun going to become a supernova or eventually become a black hole? And that's one of the early questions that we often have to tackle, even if we're not talking about like that aspect of space exploration in our programs. But I think kids are curious. I think once they start to, even listen in or participate, the questions, it's like a floodgate has opened and they then start to ask any question and things. I would say of late, and I think it's just more of this current generation, they're quite mindful about sustainnation, or like how much of waste is being put out there just because we're sending out satellites and things, or if landers, rovers have all reached other bodies, what has come of it? And I think those are really telling of just where even kids are aware of this. It's a topic that is discussed here on Earth and our role in all of that. And so they are asking and seeing how best we're behaving in that sense when we're going out and exploring. So those are two, but then it's also very specific to the topics that we talk about. So if it's about Mars, then of course Mars is the topic. So wanting to know where we've gone, the idea that Olympus Mons is as big as it is, I think is still mind-blowing, no matter how many
it's 3 times the size of the Everest or something like that, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so when you start to I think Google Earth and its platform is really good in trying to like zoom over and start to see these features. And so yeah, it's a whole range, but I think these are some of the topics that have stuck out, certainly.
Interesting. So I love the fact that these kids are, concerned about the future of the planet. What is it going to become, a black hole? What about the satellites? We're talking about, again, we probably don't have to worry about the sun that much because, again, we have 5 billion years left. So, but the satellite is definitely a huge problem. So, like, what do you think would be a proper way? Because again, and that's why I asked the question of Lucas previously, for a rover from ERC about, communicating in the right way. Because my personal concern, like we have a little bit of following, like, on, like, let's say on TikTok or, Instagram or Twitter, like on different platforms. And that's the way we consume the information these days. And part of that, because we're in a COVID and lockdown, I see a lot of brand new platforms popping up like mushrooms, like every single day, which again, it's great.
Hard to keep track.
Exactly. Part of that is great. I'm not looking to discourage people. Don't go and don't start one, go and if you're passionate about space, go and do it. But my concern is don't do it, just for the likes or for the engagement only, because that's where the miscommunication starts. That's where people do things just because they want, the emojis,
right?
And it's not about that. So what do you think will be the proper way in this informational age to convey the message about what's happening in space?
I mean, I think the idea that there are all of these different digital platforms is not a bad thing. Again, that's where, but I would say in order to sort of be accurate, it involves more than just the producers of the content. So to make sure that it is being sourced accurately, is being reached out and involving people from the community who can add that perspective and sort of provide the context in which anything is being discussed, right? So it's not just flashy tech, or it's not flashy info. There's some meaning behind it, and it kind of helps in flowing the thought even for the end viewer. So often, whether I'm talking to students or like even within my own team, we often have to think, who is that intended audience? And then how do you make sure that the content that's coming across makes sense to them, is relatable to them, but at the same time, it is accurate. And so, yeah, sourcing it out from commonly used space context is a good first step, but also just making sure that it's a team involvement. So making sure the team people are able to contribute in that way.
Yeah, gotcha. So we're talking about NASA, public agencies, or anybody who is really involved in creating something, creating a change, right?
Yeah. And often the reason being, like, often and I mean, that may be another topic of discussion separately, but these are all essentially content that is peer reviewed in some way. So it's not, just I have a feeling about this, so this is what I'm going to take. But that sort of, there is a wider audience that have sort of looked at it and given their statement on what this is, and that comes in the form of journal articles, etc., which again, to the end audience, that may not be of too much importance, but the fact that someone has taken the time to ensure that it is accurate, I think, then speaks to the quality of what is being conveyed as well.
Yeah, exactly. So that's because my concern is that, like, you just to projecting the right message to the people, and not because there are a lot of great people. Like one of those people, Willie Young, I have to give a shout out to this person. He has quite a big following on Instagram and things like that. So once you become that type of, he's not, I'm pretty sure he would say, I'm not an influencer, but he makes an influence. I mean, he gets the engagement and likes, and that means for me, you're getting the people attention, which again, at that point, you want to communicate as close to the information, the right information. You want to make it engaging for the people, because that's the young generation. How do you keep their attention? And a lot of the attention goes through the social media, but through the right information, making fun, engaging, but make it, the right information. Because I've seen some posts, Perseverance landed on Mars, and somebody posted like 360 view of Perseverance, like at night. And there was like,
I remember with the whole like
sky,
kind of like my background. There was some yes.
So that was exactly. So that was fake, and people, a lot of people, like thousands of people bought it. They're like, sharing it. They're like, oh my God, this image, but it was fake. And Will, one of those people, because he has a following, he posted like, this is completely fake. And so we need those people, to point it, so
to fact check, as they call it now.
Exactly. So so what do you think would be the right topics to talk about? Because again, what's happening in space, there's a lot of different things. What do you communicate, when you talk with the people, when you come on the podcast, or when you have, regular conversations with, with other people, friends, or, scientists? What type of discussions are you having about what type of subjects?
So I think, again, in efforts of programming and also internally as a team, even the sort of mandate of what Indus Space does, a lot of it is to also it's essentially to shine a light, that's what I was trying to say, on the diversity that exists within the community. And so if, not everyone is on social media, and really not everyone who may have been, many years ago, decades ago, are also on social media, but really they have made that contribution. They have been part of, maybe missions that have gone up, etc., and yet their voices are not necessarily heard. And so a lot of the topics and even the research that I'm currently now involved with is in understanding just how, not just only who they are, but what have they done, and then how are ways for us to communicate that to our audience. Because again, representation matters, and for a youth in a diverse locality that we are in, even in the Greater Toronto area, we have so many different communities and so many different cultures represented even amongst the youth. And so it is important, at least in our programming and the way that we share any information, to reflect that. And so that's one of the top aspects that I think is constantly in the back of my mind.
Okay, got it. Yeah. So again, we're coming back to the same thing, which is again communicating in the right way. So again, some of the topics when I clicked on an Instagram, which by the way, you guys and girls, you're gonna find that in the show notes. And I see like some of the things are in a link tree. There's a multiple links there. So one of the things that the first thing that comes to my attention is Osiris Rex sample collection. So how do you personally feel about that situation? Why is that particular event listed there for whatever reasons? And
Oh,
like why this one, I want to ask you why this event particularly stood out for you the most. So, one of you, a team members listed in there, like why that particular event?
it's a great question. And so I think it's on a number of fronts, but really that was from a few weeks ago when Osiris Rex was heading on its way back to Earth. So it has essentially left Bennu, the asteroid, and is now technically making its way back home after having collected all of these samples. So the reason for us mentioning it was on several fronts. So A, that was happening, it's space news, but B, and largely, it's because there is a huge Canadian context to that. And so, the OLA instrument, which is laser altimeter, was made, again, right here in Canada, and had done such a critical, important role in the whole context of the mission, in essentially helping understand what the roughness and the sort of topography of the asteroid was, which eventually led to mission teams deciding where to get these samples. So there's all of that sort of integral content that is Canadian, that is worth sharing to our Canadian audience, because we are usually catering to a Canadian audience. And it was also to highlight the people involved, really. So it's not just the instruments, but who are the scientific engineering teams, apart from the Canadian Space Agency, who else is there? And that is a really very broad spread across the country. And so that was one of the many reasons why we highlighted it yet again in our sort of social media history, but also in pointing people to say, look at who's all involved. And again, if that helps inspire, then that's our intention.
That's great. That's great. Because, personally for me, I remember like I posted that on a TikTok, because we have a TikTok account. I remember I posted that there as well, because I think that was a really incredible event. I mean, the fact that we got like the video content, it wasn't a video, but I think it was stacked images, it looked like a
but
video.
Mind blowing to think like an asteroid that's so rubbly has that, and then it also talks to the innovations, right? Like the technology that's on that instrument suite that's able to capture. And I think that's
incredible. So what do you think about there is this theory, it's called, let me see, basically I can't remember the exact name of that, but let me just give a second. But there is this theory that says that basically there could be a potential life form, bacterial life form on asteroids, and that's how we came about. What's the theory called? That basically this this asteroid hit the planet sometime, billions of years ago, and that's how we came about. That's how life been created. That basically these, bacteria is being carried through the universe. Like, do you think that's a scenario of that's how the life is getting created in the universe, or do you think there's some other magic to it?
So that's more a question for an astrobiologist, which I will admit I am not. But I think, if anything, to mention that the whole interest, like why even send a mission to an asteroid, is in understanding how our early solar system was. We don't have that evidence right here in our backyard on our home planet, and so we look to these other parts of the solar system to explore that and ask those very early fundamental questions, right? So I think if anything, collecting these samples just gives us a little bit of a look into what that might have been. like, and then maybe it can help adjust how did first life forms come onto Earth. Was it that or a constant bombardment of that sort of material or not? So it's very early days. And again, as I said, I'm not astrobiologist to talk
That's
more
fine.
in detail, but I think that's where each of these missions, I think, and that's one of the things I communicate often is for every mission that's going and exploring any part, even our own planet, it's kind of giving us a piece into the jigsaw puzzle that is our, how did the solar system form, etc. And so every piece is a new piece of information. So why turn away from exploring that?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it's very interesting. So it's called panspermia because I just Googled it right quick. So it's a panspermia. Yeah, the theory of that basically, we've been hit by the asteroid, and that's how the life been created by, carrying these whatever type of foreign bacteria or, So what do you think about the scenario of us as we go towards, having space companies, and now we have companies who are talking about mining these asteroids for resources. What do you think about that type of scenario happening?
So I think I mean, in some ways it makes sense to want to have to think about that, because again, you're going onto a new surface that does not have anything that we as humans would rely on, right? So the idea of wanting to mine and extract resources from there makes sense. There is a need for it. And really, if the whole goal is for us to send humans to the moon or Mars, I mean, is it rational for us to lug everything from Earth? Does that really, is it most efficient? And if not, then we have to rely, if we need to have astronauts survive for a long enough time to help us with the science, they have to survive in some ways, which means extracting. And I think it can be done. I would say, again, thinking back to what I started off with, kids even asking, how do we make it so that it's sustainable? How do we make it so that we're not taking out a lot more than we need, and we're not leaving any sort of wastage as well? It's sort of being reused or repurposed in some ways, so that that cycle is well set. We've seen this happen on the space station. I think there's ways we can explore that even when we're on a new surface. So yeah.
Okay. So going back from the asteroid into Mars, because again, that's a big topic again with the Perseverance. Like, and now again, we're searching for that, microbial life with Perseverance on Mars. So you having again, as you have a PhD in geological sciences, like, how do you feel about this entire Mars situation, and do you think it's possible for us to inhabit it? Should we go there? I mean, because of the the conditions that are there. I mean, what's your entire perspective just on Mars?
I think it's exciting. Again, for what we've seen with how Perseverance and the technologies, even with Ingenuity, have managed. It's like it is kudos to the teams who have had that sort of expertise, vision, and like kind of pushing the boundaries out there, right? Like, because without that we wouldn't be where we are, even with Ingenuity. I think it's really exciting to see the potential of where all of these technologies can lead to, and really the purpose of all of it is to help support human exploration. So I would say, I mean, with any planetary body that we explore, it's always exciting. You're never going to hear, at least from me, being like, why are we going there? No, let's go there. But it's also more along the ideas of, there are science questions to ask, again, right from how did our solar system form to why is Mars the way that it is, unlike Earth, and etc. So all of these sort of exploration approaches help us understand that. But then it also comes back to us as humans you will need to survive, whether it's on Earth or on Mars. We're always constantly facing a lot of challenges. How best to deal with it, right? And so anything that happens in space exploration, I think one of the neat things is that there's often a spin-off that then comes back to us being able to try it here on Earth. So I would say, like, even if we go to Mars, should we go? Yeah. Where will we go? Good question. This is where all the satellite images will help us understand where to go. But really, it's in exploring. I think the key in all of this is there's a curiosity, there's a need to understand why things are the way they are, and why not explore? So
yeah, exactly. Because we were naturally explorers. I keep repeating that, and a lot of people who've been on the show keep telling that, and we've been this way, and probably that's where we destined to be. Hopefully, but because as I said, we need so many different resources. Probably not the resources, is just for us to understand how important is the space, and how long do you think actually is going to take for us to go from this, as they call it, of having Earth-like thinking, where we have, whatever we have, think about every single day, to having this, universal type of thinking, where we think about, problems or things bigger than ourselves. How long do you think it is going to take that, or it's even possible to achieve something like that?
I would say a few more generations, just at the way that things are going. And I'm no expert when it comes to space law or any of that sort. So how does that even get sorted? I feel will be another area of discussion, to put it mildly. But I think, again, the way innovation is being pushed at the rate that it is, again, to think about, like, in 100 years, we've gone from first flight on Earth to now first flight on Mars. And so with that, there is a lot of potential. But I think it involves everyone's efforts and understandings to ensure that it's for the betterment of society, however you go and explore, wherever you go and explore. So I would think that it'll still take a few generations. And how do humans survive in space? I think that's the whole aspect that is still being, it's in its infancy. So we know how that happens on the space station. There's still ways to go in regards to space medicine and all of that. And so I would like to think a few generations. So we'll see.
Okay, so as I told you in the beginning of the conversation, now we're shining the positive light onto you guys and saying it's only a couple of generations. It's not that long. It's not going to be another 1,000 years. So yeah, so part of that is, again, yeah, exactly. So part of that is, again, getting more people involved. And you found it, again, still being a scientist. So I can call you a scientist. You have a PhD, you're a geologist, right? So you founded the Indus Space. So now the question is, how can someone create a space company or related to space company? Like, what will be your type of advice, and who are going to be suitable for that? Is it everybody, or maybe you need some sort of a magic traits or skills to achieve what you're currently doing?
So there are two aspects to that answer. On the one side is, no matter what you're doing, whether you're already in a current career or not, if you have a passion and you feel like you have the, you want to address a question that is burning in your mind, go for it. Like that passion, I think, is the first step in kind of, because this is going to be a long haul. It's not like it's going to sort itself in, like, a year or so. So the passion part is one key thing. But I think now I'm excited to see traditional space programs in post-secondary are involving the whole entrepreneurial aspects in their programming, which sadly wasn't there when I did my degrees. And so I think that may provide more and more ways and opportunities for someone to explore this and see if that is something that they want to pursue, if it's not the traditional routes of post-secondary graduations and stuff. So there's that as well. But it's also then in having a team that believes in it equally, wants to kind of promote whatever the sort of vision or mandate is, and using that, because there are entrepreneurship is not, again, easy, but there are ways and there's support systems that exist. And so it's a matter of knowing what's out there, reach out, and then use that and then pay it forward. I would say that's the other thing, is to kind of help others as well, because no one is doing this on their own. There's a community. And so yeah,
gotcha. So when we're talking about that support, I think that's the key thing, probably, for somebody who's thinking about creating a project or a business or anything in the space industry, because it's not like something you can go and to the YouTube or Google and find, 30 billion pages and all the answers are there, schematics, you go from A to B and this is the process. Like there's a lot of unknowns still in this industry, and these steps are quite unclear for a lot of people. So I think having that guidance, and we coming back again to mentorships or having people around you, again, books, there's workshops, there's online events. So, can you talk about the importance of having a mentor for you personally? I mean, have you used it, and how much do you recommend for somebody who's looking to get started?
I mean, I definitely important, because a mentor always provides valuable insights that may relate directly to what it is that you're doing, or may just be in that sort of bubble around, again, the idea of maybe space exploration or even entrepreneurship, right? So that is where, if there's never only one mentor, you can always find more than one. And so that's a good thing.
Exactly.
That I would encourage.
Exactly, and that's a very stupid question for me. Of course, mentor is a good thing to have.
Oh.
How would you say, again, what would you say for the ladies? Because like a lot of the ladies, I have a lot of ladies, on my show coming in, and I will have many more. I think ladies are super awesome. They're doing a lot of breakthrough stuff. Like a lot of ladies that I encountered that have them on the show, like they're working on some really big stuff, and you can go, guys and girls, and check it out through the episodes that I had previously. Some of those people, again, Prashadi Patel, one of those people, and there's a lot of great women. So what would you say for the women, like for if they're thinking about getting started in this industry, and maybe they're having thoughts it's a manned space or whatever, whatever the thoughts they're having, like how would you encourage them? What would you tell them?
So social media probably is the first best place to find everyone else and reach out. But certainly there are different leadership programs, at least out here in Canada. And so I think that now means that there needs to be a bit more of a coordinated effort to share this information at a more global scale, because we're all in our own sort of corners, and we may not know what exists. So I would say reach out. If there are Facebook groups, there are community groups that are very specific to either astronomy or planetary science, or even women in each of these sectors. So it's a matter of maybe doing a little Google search to begin with, but then also reaching out in all of these ways. And yeah, the community is very supportive and very transparent on many fronts, especially on challenges that women may face, and yet how you can still overcome that, or what are strategies to not be bogged down by that. And I think it exists. So it's just a matter of reaching out when you do hear or come across.
Got it. And what about the Indus Space? Are you looking for any recent graduates that could be doing some sort of a volunteering job? Do you have any available or future positions open?
Down the road, yes. And so if you would like to volunteer, I will certainly be open to having a conversation, and then we can see how best to kind of take it forward, because a lot of that is still early startup stage that is very lean on certain spending. So it depends on really, how we can figure it out. So definitely reach out. Yeah.
Got it. So where do you want to see the Indus Space like going, let's say, having a projection, 3 or 5 years from now, not going into, 20 years, but what's the future plan for you and for the company?
Definitely more sort of opportunities and possibilities to share the message, right? Like of what it is that we do, try to find ways to engage our audiences with space professionals, and certainly being out there so that we could, if anyone has questions or is looking for something, they can also reach out to us and see if that'll help. But at the same time, I think if you look at it from a space professional side, certainly Indus Space I would like for it to be a place where space professionals can get a bit of an experience, because for us, as much as we are space focused, it's also an opportunity to try science communication or aspects like that, which if that is of interest to people, certainly reach out and figure, and that's where we would like to see, because at the end, the audience is important, and finding ways to kind of share all of this amazing knowledge across the globe and beyond with them.
So what do you think would be kind of, important topics of discussion? Because again, like everybody that I talk to, they're talking about certain missions or certain things. Like, what do you, again, and having conversations with these young kids, and like them giving their perspective or asking questions, or telling them what's happening, like what would be the topics, not talking about Artemis or, SpaceX, like the kind of the surface topics, going deeper into and kind of talking about, things that maybe a lot of people don't know about, but they should know. Like, is there anything that you would share, from that kind of angle? That it's not, discussable, it's not being discussed a lot, but it's an important thing that's happening or will be happening in the near future.
I think, again, a sort of thing I alluded to before was the whole aspect of representation, the idea of there being a more diverse voice in whoever participates in, the leadership roles and stuff like that. So I would envision that being an important topic that will need to be further investigated and further explored, because a lot of the data that we know of or come across really is from the United States, which is really good information to know of, but then it does not represent for anyone outside of the United States. So I would think of that being a sort of an avenue that needs to be explored. And it doesn't have to just be by myself or Indus Space. I would say for anyone who's interested in that, I think that's where some focus would be good to have.
I completely get it. I think having a little bit more diversified information sources, more information sources available, just like NASA. And part of that, I understand, like, and, I'm like, Canada is doing phenomenal things. Like the fact that they have Canada arm, like on ISS, and it does a really important part, plays a lot, big part there. So, Canada plays a huge part in the space industry, and not just with that, but, having more options to choose from. And part of that, and today, again, I'm not wearing the NASA t-shirt, and I think I have a few, but it's just because they do a great job with marketing themselves. And we had those discussions. There's ESA, there's JAXA, there's ISRO, and those private, those government agencies, we heard about them, we know they exist, but they're not pushing on the marketing efforts, because we're coming back to the point, as we're kind of discussing, how do you, go about with your, information? What do you put out, and again, SpaceX, they do a great job with that, capturing the talent these days, and that's the key to their growth, is because they capture the great people, the unicorns for their companies. And the way they do that, they put out the live feed on YouTube, and there's a link saying, here we go, we're looking for that particular position, go and apply. And there's all these kids who are excited for the launch, regardless if it's going to be good or not. They will go and apply, because, it's SpaceX, it's Elon Musk, it's something. So, having more options just for people to give as a kind of informational sources. So it won't be NASA all the time, data NASA, everything's from NASA, but, so
I think they've paved a very good way,
for sure.
And initiatives, lots of effort and time has gone into that. And I think that's in response to the NASA mandate, like, taxpayers pay for all of this. And so that it's only fair that they get access to it, which I totally agree. And I think, but this also provides opportunities for commercial companies to, again, outside of anywhere, who are involved in space related innovations, to highlight that they're doing that. I think it's a community effort of also just knowing who's out there, reaching out, and then seeing, can we promote you because you're doing amazing work, right? And so I think there's ways to go, but I think everyone's realizing, again, because of so much of the news happening out in space related.
Yeah, because I think it's a very interesting topic, because I think everybody would love to be in a position. And again, NASA, they have, 23.4 billion, year, fiscal year,
Budget.
yeah, again, budget again from the government. So they have the available capital. Of course, that capital goes towards the projects that are feeding past, future, current. And of course, part of that goes to marketing and things like that. But, it's not probably a lot. But, I'm thinking about how people could, because people are super creative. There's so many great stories and now happening with the cryptocurrencies and different things where people, making, really big shifts in the economy or things like that. And when people come together. And now I'm thinking about, what would require for the people and all those different science communicators to come together. And again, not to compete with NASA and say, oh, don't follow the NASA data. They're doing a great job with that, but just creating a second or a third or a fourth option for the people, so they could pay attention, to multiple things at the same time. So it's an interesting topic, and I need to keep a note for myself to explore that a little bit more in detail.
I think it's also an opportunity to, again, for that end audience, to know that maybe astronauts are not the only jobs in the space industry.
Yep.
So it's sort of several layers of information to kind of sift through, etc. But at the end, I think there can be a collaborative effort from many stakeholders of sorts to just kind of say, okay, at the end, it's for the greater good of engaging the community and the general public. And so we can all do our part. So,
Exactly. So coming back to the point, because if you don't mind, then maybe you can steer the way you want to, steer the conversation. So feel free. Look, as you know, this show always has 0 questions, and I just ask the questions that I think is good for me, and maybe the audience would like to hear the answers too. But coming back to the point of, having technology, having things in light from that kind of perspective. Again, we're looking as a SN 15, 20, whatever launches with the SpaceX or, Blue Origin and, NASA and whatsoever. But coming back to the point of having this universal perspective, I spoke with a lot of analog astronauts, again, high seas, Lunaris, or, other places.
Yeah.
Great people. And, they're talking about this one issue, is kind of psychological issues, that conflicts that happening. And we talked about AI that could be solving, and it's actually being created, a system that can help to solve these issues, conflicts that are happening. So where do you think, and again, probably going to say I'm not an AI specialist, but from your personal perspective, what do you think is going to happen with the AI? How big of a part is that going to play in the space industry?
I would think huge. And for many reasons, but the main thing that sticks out is just the amount of data that's coming in from any of these missions. It's I don't think we can even capture, I can't wrap my head on what that number is, but it's a large number. And so it almost would help in making the whole process efficient for, again, humans to kind of then just focus in on, okay, here's all the sort of basics have been looked at, etc. And now we can just go in, and our time will be well spent, so that it's not sort of bogged down by manual to-dos and all of that. So I would say at the very core of it, AI is where it's going, because it'll help with that process. So I think the challenges that might still exist is just in getting everyone equipped to work with that. And so that's where a lot of initiatives and funding is going to helping audiences, whether you're in kindergarten or up, to kind of understand the basics of it, just so that by the time you come into post-secondary, it becomes a bit more mainstream, which I have to say, this current generation is very, very tech savvy. So it's not like they have to have that added learning. It's almost like they will pick it up quite quickly. And so broadly speaking, I think that's the way it's headed. And sure, let's just make sure everyone's equipped with knowing how to work with that.
So we're talking about computer engineering, right? And there's sector is being quite big, and I see again a lot of people pursuing that when it comes to the coding, developing, program softwares, or running that. I spoke with the people who are just doing that kind of from software point, working with ISS modules, with DLR. It's DLR with the German companies, and right. So this field is going to be definitely bigger. And there's going to be more different opportunities for people. Again, robotics, other thing that I think is really big, and it plays a big part. Again, coming back to the Osiris Rex, we're talking about robotics. This is robotics, so
or even the space station.
Yeah.
And lunar gateway, because that's the next big thing out here, at least, is and the idea of sending like an ISS 2.0 around the moon, very exciting. But how do you then manage to do a lot of the things that maybe astronauts had to? And so that's where you really rely back on AI and robotics to kind of help with that process. And so
it's very interesting, because AI is very interesting subject. A lot of people have different opinions about that. It depends who you're going to listen to. Like, if you're going to watch an Elon Musk interview, you're going to hear screaming like, oh my god, this is going to be the worst thing ever, nobody's going to control it, it's going to be like a genie out of the bottle, that's it, it's gone, and it's going to run on its own. It's going to be this kind of crazy world Terminator scenario, and you think like, oh my god, we're going to die. But if you listen to other people, we're talking about having programs, robots, systems in place that can free up our time. Yeah, it can free up and take hassle of the tasks that we're not good at, maybe physically. Again, I love what's happening with Boston Dynamics. Like when I see that, it's like, oh, it's interesting. Like I see the robots doing the flipping, and you see those dogs running.
Oh yeah, it's true. Yeah. Oh, that was weird to watch, but yes, I hear you.
You saw the dancing, right? The dancing.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's like,
yeah.
It catch the attention.
Yeah, it's very interesting. So I think that's going to be the future, because it's going to open up. So I think people will start to understand that this pandemic, it doesn't matter how, it's definitely a bad thing is happening, but we will start to understand that we can work from home. And a lot of people now, as I mentioned, shifting from, thing that they hate towards maybe something more creative, and doing something for themselves. Again, with the company that you're creating, I'm pretty sure that there's this thing that runs in you, the passion that you have, and that's the reason why you do it, right? So I think a lot of people now have time to think about that and choose what they would like to do in the future. And now we are going to have robotic systems, things in place to do the things that you hate to do, the cubicle type of job, right? So I think it's good, but again, depends who you're listening to. So gotcha. Okay, so what do you think again is just going to happen with this Canada situation? Like, how maybe you can give a little bit more insights into the space agency, because as we spoke about, there is a lot of noise being created around NASA and different agencies, but like Canada, for me, like of course you mentioned Artemis mission. So what else is happening with the Canada? I mean, what other exciting projects are they putting together currently?
I know of the student challenges that are happening, so clearly they are focused on that aspect as well, but there are like a whole range of satellite launches, satellites that they would like to launch, and they're working with several teams across the country, academic and industry, in creating that. And so I think this is again where the neat opportunity is now they're involving student teams post-secondary to be part of that process. So I think it's a great learning moment for students to get that hands-on experience and understand, okay, these are all the components, and then eventually they're seeing something like that actually launch potential. It's later for the next couple of years. So that's definitely one aspect. There's the sort of radar sat constellation, again, looking on Earth observation that they're very huge on, and Osiris Rex and Mars. I think there's quite some, if not, the agency is supporting in many ways, but really there's a lot of research and tech going into Perseverance, for example, and so it's very exciting times. Osiris Rex you mentioned, and the anticipation is growing for Lunar Gateway. So there's clearly a lot of current activities, but again, down the road, which again, to the audience I tend to work with, is, it's very exciting for them to see that, oh, it's not just something that happened in the past. It's now something that's well coordinated or planned for the next couple of decades, right when they're graduating and potentially entering the workforce as well. So lots of exciting things. for sure.
Got it. So what about the other, personal exciting things, because again, like for me personally, I love the James Webb situation. Like I would love to see that
That's true.
happening,
Yeah.
at the end of the year, October, hopefully.
Yep.
Again. So any other like missions or things that you think are, or will be kind of breakthrough moments, in the future, or were in the past, like again, Apollo missions, or maybe something that you think kind of change or will change, the future in a space science forever?
I mean, you mentioned James Webb. Yeah, there are quite a few Canadians involved with that as well, and so there's that excitement, and fingers crossed that it does manage to actually launch later this year. I'm trying to think, even on the astronomy side, there's quite a few current telescopes out in British Columbia that are the CHIME one that is actively working, and so in helping researchers understand about the greater expanse of the universe. There's a lot more on that front, and more. I think there's I tend to focus more on the sort of planetary end, but I think there's quite a range of missions on the go that are, and of course sending astronauts, right? Like even through the Gateway mission, like in phase 2 of Artemis, that's when astronauts are headed back to the moon or to moon's orbit, and Canadian astronauts are part of that plan. So there's a lot of excitement on that front as well.
That's awesome. Canada rocks for sure. Canada rocks, in the space industry. And I'm looking at the.
But it's a global. I will say it is a global initiative. So yes, we as a country are there, but it's teamwork. All along.
Yeah, teamwork makes the dream work. Got it. So and I see the CHIME is a radio telescope, right? It's not a.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So and I see they do part of the work with the SETI Institute also. Kind of some work with them.
Collaborations, quite likely. Yeah.
Okay, got it. What do you think about this situation of looking for life, in the galaxy? Do you think, on your own perspective, just thoughts, do you think there's something out there? I'm not talking about bacteria. Perseverance is doing a good job to looking for that. I'm talking about something maybe more advanced.
I don't know that I have an opinion either way. If they find it, great.
People are really scared of this question. People are like, I don't want to talk about that. Aliens now, come on.
It's not being scared. I think it's, again, with the scientific mind, it's like I should be accurate if I talk about anything, and if I'm not familiar with the topic, I'm not gonna.
Scientists don't have opinions. It's facts. What they give.
Yeah, so I don't have all the facts to make a sort of call on it.
Got it. So we're
gonna. But I mean, again, it's all like it's around the whole basic idea of exploration, wanting to see if there's any sort of evidence and looking for patterns and all of that, right? So, yeah. So I know many will be looking for that. Exactly.
Yeah, we're gonna leave it for the SETI and for the James Webb, or for whatever is doing that type of research, because I think it's very interesting, and it's of course it's a different topic as well. Got it. Okay, so it's good. Like I love the fact where the company is going, the things that you want to accomplish again now and for the future. Hopefully, fingers crossed, you can get more team members, because again, it's that how fast you can grow is by having more people making collaborations, and I see you do that successfully. So my hat's off to you for doing that.
Thank you.
And again, continuing to impact the younger generation, because now we're talking about the next, as you talked about, a couple of decades or maybe 100 years from now. So that's exactly what you do. You're nurturing those people and letting them to know like what's happening in the space industry. You can be part of that. This is the way to do it. So it's really great, because I don't think, again, I know there's not a lot of people doing that. So, so it's really great what you do. So I love it.
Thanks. I appreciate that.
So look, but the question now remains, let's say 20 years from now, 30 years from now, you're where you want to be. You created the company. It is where you want to create it. You have everything that you want to have. Now the question is, looking at the time, okay, everybody's going to be gone at some point. So what do you think is going to be that legacy that is going to continue to live on after everything ends from your personal life?
Oh, wow. Heavy question for like, I think, I mean, at the end of it is for it to continue on in sharing the message that space is for everyone. Whoever wants to join can find something to do within the community. The idea that, you know, anyone can be part of the space community. Hopefully that didn't overlap with the first answer, because there are technically two distinct aspects of it. But also, yeah, so seeing someone and providing that sort of economic support by being part of the space industry. And I think no matter if I'm the one who's leading that or you know, someone else takes it down the road, at the end, it's keeping in mind of we're doing things for the society, even in the ways that we're like having our programs or our content, and at the end it is for the community to for it to flourish. And so that's how I see it as being in 20 to 30 years, so involving everyone in that process, so not just on one group.
Exactly. Awesome.
If that made sense.
It makes sense for me, and for you guys and girls who are watching or listening to this episode. I don't know if it makes sense for you or not. Rewind that, go watch it again, listen again, because it makes a lot of sense for sure. Because look, I think, again, as I said, you're doing a great job with what you do, and we need so many more people to get involved in the space industry. So I do encourage whoever is watching or listening, pass this episode to your friends. Because they need to hear this, and especially women, because women are awesome. They're doing some amazing work in this, you know, in this industry, and I would like to see more. Because look, I'm going to run out of people, you know, who I'm going to interview. So I need, you know, more people. I'm talking from a selfish perspective now. You know, I need somebody to do great so I can interview them. So please.
I sent you a lot of recommendations, I believe. So it at least grows the list a little.
Yes, thank you for that, for sure. So look, it's awesome. So again, guys and girls, make sure to go to indusspace.ca for more information. Again, and keep an eye when you know, Bhairavi, right? When you're gonna open up a position for, you know, anybody to join us, join her in the company as a volunteer or do some sort of work, it's gonna be great. You know, you're gonna enjoy a lot, get some really great experience. Yeah, and for you, I just wish you to do, you know, to pour more fuel or wood on the fire to continue to do what you do. And again, as far as me or my community, if I can, you know, support you in any way possible so you can grow faster, you know, bigger, or what, you know, because it's all about that collaboration. It's all about that effort. That's how we grow. It's not Canada, it's not US. It's, for me, there is no borders. There's one thing that unites us all. We're people. Right. So I think, you know, that's what we need to do. So look, guys and girls, thank you for watching another spaceexplr episode. Again, go and check it out. The websites, all the information, go and follow the Instagram link. I guess, as I told, you know, Regina is doing a great job. So make sure to go and check it out. And again, I'll see you in the next episode. Thanks for watching.